Okay, so next we'll go into our public hearing. I wanted to just ask our Finance Committee Chair if she could give us an update on the budget. We've had a couple of meetings recently and have some coming up, so thought she could set some context for us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe the Finance Committee has met for its 7th time on the budget this past Friday, where we took action and approved a budget amount of $111,966,948. And so basically where we are right now is we will have a public hearing on the Finance Committee's proposed budget. We will have a budget workshop following this business meeting in order for board members to get caught up to speed with where the Finance Committee's at. And then on Thursday, we will have a meeting with between the Finance Committee and the School Board Finance Committee and the City Finance Committee. Following this first read, we will be voting on Thursday, April 12th, for the actual ratification of the budget.
Thank you. And at this time, I would open up the podium for public comment on the FY19 budget. I will, just for ground rules, we do not allow cheering or booing or any such other emotions, just because we expect this to be a safe place for anybody regardless of their position. And if you would like to speak on this, please line up behind the podium. When you get to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, Todd Ramachili, retired math teacher from Peaks Island. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Make It Happen program at Portland High School, where I tutor and where Hamdi is a student, and she told me to go first because I'd forget what I wanted to say. What was I supposed to say? Okay, no, I'll keep going. So I just have to say I thank you for your support of Make It Happen for the last 6 years. It's given me a place to go, keep my skills up to date. Yesterday I couldn't do a geometry program. The kids told me I had to leave, which was fine. No, they didn't really. But seriously, Make It Happen is an amazing place where about 80 kids who come from Africa, West Asia, South America, Central America, have a place where they can make English a language that they're very comfortable in. They speak it quickly. They speak English very quickly, but it's reading and writing that are hard. And so when I get to a word problem, I love it, because I love word problems. And of course, they hate it. But it's a chance to really explore the language. I think that what's more important, what happened this year at Make It Happen, was we stole the coordinator from Deering High School. Sorry. We stole their coordinator, and we had a coordinator this year who hit the ground running and made a huge difference in how the program worked right from the get-go. The kids knew that this coordinator knew what she was doing. She knew all the ropes of FAFSA and AFSA and all that nonsense. So she was able to get them going, particularly the seniors and juniors, on looking at that stuff. It was organized and extremely supportive. So I thank you. My wife thanks you for having a place for me to go. And now I give you Hamdi, who's been a student I've worked with for several years.
Hello, I'm Hamdi, and I'm senior at Portland High School. Well, when I came to America first, I was so nervous, and I started freshman at Portland High School. And before that, we used to live in India, and when I went to India with my family, it was like so difficult for me to learn the new language, and there was like no one helpful. So I had to learn myself, and with help with my sisters. And then I came to America, and I thought like it's gonna be exactly the same problem in India. But my friends introduced me to Make It Happen, and Make It Happen helped me a lot with my homeworks and assignment that the teachers gave it to me, and especially math, that he helped me a lot. And this year, I was struggling with college and essays and financial aid. And they were there for me to help me every after school. And that was really good. That's all I need to say.
Thank you.
She's got homework to do this week.
Anyone else?
It's always great to see one of our seniors up here speaking out and finding her voice. I'm Kathy Marquis-Gerard. I represent the Administrators Association, the PAA, and I'm also assistant principal at Portland High School. So I wanted to take a minute tonight and reflect, as we often sometimes don't do, on the process and mark our progress as we go through the budget. Oftentimes there are moments that get tense, there's hard work that needs to be done, and I think as an educational institute we need to model for our kids that sometimes the value is in the process. So I want to take a minute tonight, and a couple of colleagues here, to talk about what I'd like to, a couple of points that I'd like to make and mark with you as our school board. First off, I am really grateful that you reviewed the process, for sitting in on a lot of the meetings, listening to the angst, but also to be grateful that you are paying attention. You're reviewing it, you're not just looking at it, you want to become informed members of this board, and I'm grateful for that. Because oftentimes it's the nuances and understanding the problem and understanding a program. Next, I'm grateful that you retained most of the superintendent's new request, and that's really critical, because sometimes when we get in the middle of a hard financial crisis, we look at what we can take off, not looking at new items that need to appear and be part of our vision and our mission. I am grateful that you understand that this is a revenue problem, and this is not a spending problem. There's a big difference there, and I think oftentimes we forget that when we're down in the weeds. I also want to acknowledge that you understand that we need to move this district forward. We cannot settle on our status quo. We've identified areas of need. We've identified groups, programs, and students who need our support to bring us up to the Portland Promise. And I really appreciate the fact that you understand and you have that vision. I also want you to know that the investment and the attainment that we have is going to come with some challenges. So again, your support and your understanding of the programs and the issues is critical as we move this forward. I also want to really congratulate you, and you understand again that cutting programs, cutting teachers, and cutting principals is not the answer to get where we need to go. It sometimes is a quick one if there's a retirement or some peace, but it's the whole picture that you need to understand, and I feel very encouraged that you are, and you have become informed, and you are listening. I also am thankful for the community members and the parents that lined up behind me. And oftentimes when you're in that line, you're not sure what's going to be said. And I've been here for quite a while and gone through a number of difficult budget processes. And I want to tell you that how gratifying it was to hear that support from the community. And I think that's not only a reflection of the community and the changes in the community, but I think it's a reflection of their faith in your leadership. And so I want to congratulate you on that. Being behind the scenes, being out in front of it, being good listeners, and hearing and really understanding the problem. So I want to congratulate you on that, because I think that is huge. Kathy, your time's up. And the next thing is, I want, what was that? My time is up. Can I have like 30 more seconds? Excellent. All right, I've never had to ask for extra time, so let's use it well. All right, so I also want to remind you that we cannot lose sight of the commitment, and that is that we represent the Portland Promise. You understand the importance of the Portland Promise when it comes to the equity issue. I see it every day, we see it every day, students see it every day, parents and community members, and I've heard that loud and clear. So just to be mindful, 54% of our free and reduced, 30% 34% of our language minority, and 44 of identified students that are Black, Hispanic, Asian, and multi-biracial. That is the group that we owe our commitment to, and to focus our equity so that it's all kids have the equal access. So I thank you for your time, and I'm going to turn it over to a couple of colleagues.
Good evening. I'm Sheila Jepson. I live at 138 Walcott Street here in Portland, and I'm also the proud principal of Portland High School. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of all of my colleagues, though, not just Portland High School. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. We all recognize how difficult the decisions are during this budget process, and we very much appreciate what you've done in support of our schools, our staff, and our students. Thank you for supporting the superintendent's budget. On a daily basis, our staff focuses on the needs of our students. Teachers in our schools work tirelessly, not only on academics, but on making our students better citizens and contributing members of our community. That is their passion. Part of our work in schools is not only encouraging students to be the best they can be academically, we also connect with students who need a bit more from us in terms of encouragement and motivation and options. Oftentimes, our art, music, and physical education staff are the ones who find that nugget of passion in students, and who are then able to make the connection to school and to who they are as learners. Programs like Make It Happen that you heard about tonight, and our mentoring program support the aspirations of our language minority students. We're so lucky in Portland where an internship or an extended learning opportunity at an art studio or with a Maine senator, at an architectural firm, or at the Portland Symphony is something that we are able to offer our students. Our students experience the world, they take action, and they see perspectives of others. It's this combination of academics sprinkled with a focus on social emotional learning for our students is what makes Portland Public Schools a step above the rest. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Beverly Stevens, the principal at Ocean Avenue School, and I'm speaking on behalf of elementary programming. The equity goal that we've already heard about is central to the work that we do. You've seen it in all of our school success plans over and over again. We're working on a multiple range of programming for this. But I just want to talk about two that have been talked about in this budget so far in this process. One is class size. And so looking at class size and focusing directly on the youngest students for age 5 to 8 or K through 3, class size is one of the only practices that have been proven by scientifically randomized control studies to increase student achievement. And understanding that we cannot have class sizes of 17 or less in all the schools, all for K through 3. But if we need to focus on that, to focus on the youngest kids, K1, K1, 2, if we can. Because that has shown that the most increased math and reading achievement for all kids, but the most for students who are in poverty, who are minority students, who have are ELL, they receive the most benefit. When students are assessed at the end of 8th grade, when they've had these smaller class sizes, they are a year ahead of their peers who've been in a class size of 22 or more. We also have fewer dropouts and fewer teen pregnancies, better college entrance exams, and many, many more outcomes. The other piece I'd like to speak about is the lack of social work in 2 of our elementary schools, Longfellow and Riverton. So they are students who, their social workers can only get to the kids who have IEPs. So these are legalized, legal requirements that we must meet to meet with the social worker to work on their goals. But there's other kids in the school who also need their help. So these kids are dealing with divorce or death or other family changes, illness that they're going through chemotherapy, so they have illnesses. They really need an outlet and they need a chance to talk. Or just simply the kid who's having ongoing emotional needs or solving a peer problem. But this is not available to these students in Riverton or at Longfellow because they're needed to be focused on those particular legal needs. Longfellow is just asking for a bump in their part-time person, and Riverton used to have 2 social workers up to 5 or 6 years ago, but someone retired and then it just was never filled, and they're feeling that lack of support across. Both schools are turning away parents who are asking for support, and they're also turning away teachers who are asking for support for their kids. So just really hope that those 2 positions stay in, and also for class size to stay lower as possible. Thanks so much for all the work that you're doing. I've been there at the meetings, and I see the work that everybody's doing, and I really appreciate your engagement. Thank you.
I thought room 200 was intimidating. So my name is David Hopkinson, 9 Grafton Street, and I'll respectfully request an additional 30 seconds as I calm myself down. Good evening. Substantial progress has been made. Most importantly, what I have seen is a school board that listens and reacts. Each of you have your own specific views, and each of you have made concessions in your mind to support a budget that helps our children and community move forward. Thank you very much. As a whole, parents are passionate. We want our children to have the best education possible. Sometimes this can be looked at as parents being the only ones that have high expectations, and that is why we mobilize and speak. I'm here to tell you this is simply not true. We have minimum expectations. We have an expectation that our students' education is the focus of the entire community, not just from current parents of school-age children, but those who have already put children through any school system, those that are retired and live in the community, and those that use our community for work and play. Our minimum expectation is that each child is given the same opportunity to learn and succeed, that no matter what island, neighborhood, race, color, creed, or socioeconomic background they come from, they are safe and free to learn. They are not just taught how to read and write, they are taught how to think, be good citizens, and become an integral part of our community. This is a revenue problem, not a spending problem. This is not the future of funding education. We do not need to change the national conversation on funding, we need to change our own immediately. Schools are already being forced to close the funding gap partially on their own. The Family Council at Presumpscot held its first 5K last year. The donation and sponsorship form stated, "The money you donate will fund classroom and school-wide educational resources and projects." Doesn't seem very shiny to me. On March 28th, Donors Choose announced that Ripple, provider of enterprise blockchain solutions, and its executives have donated $29 million to fund every classroom project request on the nonprofit's website. The donation fulfilled 35,000 requests from 28,000 public schools and teachers in every state. Teachers at 16,561 public schools, or 1 in 6 of all public schools in America, will receive books, school supplies, technology, field trips, and other resources that they state are vital for learning. This announcement came out and was reported on the same screenshot as multiple state teachers expressed deep concern with not only their paycheck, but the funding that buys their books, pencils, paper, and basic education needs. I don't care what the historical mill rate is. I don't care how many city councilors have been on the school board. I don't care what didn't work in the 80s or 90s. These folks were elected because of their resumes, and they have a tremendous amount of knowledge and understanding in this process that honestly many of us do not perceive. However, not only has this city been through an economic boom in the last decade, but an intellectual one as well. We have somehow figured out how to attract top-level businesses and organizations and promote a tremendous arts and music scene. Now, we just need to do that with education. Let's continue to work together, unanimously, and make it be known that this is our moment. The projected budget for the future continues to raise taxes that are not sustainable to many in our community. We need to show them that this is the year of a stopgap, that the school board, the city council, and the voters all stand together to find the alternative funding that is necessary to enforce the Portland Promise and make this the best school district in Maine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matt Reading. I'm a Peaks Island resident, and as I mentioned at the Tuesday meeting last week, the proud parent of a future attendee of Peaks Island Elementary School, and I'm here to express my gratitude to the Finance Committee for retaining funding for the Peaks Island and Cliff Island Elementary Schools in your proposed budget. I don't know if you felt like I did seeing the response from the island communities last week. But I think you see when a community is small, just how undeniable the importance of a viable and accessible neighborhood elementary school is to the health of a community. It's the Peaks Island Elementary School is the beating heart of our community, and it means so much more than just the education of our children. It is the health and the existence of our community. That's what it guarantees for us, and so I appreciate that very much, and I thank you for hearing all of us as we came to speak to you and tell you about how important it is to us. And I thank the members of the Finance Committee for your insistent support of Island schools, and I applaud you in carrying that forward throughout this entire process. So thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Jen Boggs. I live at Edgeworth Avenue. I'm the parent of a second grader at Longfellow, and I come to these hearings and I never intend to say anything. And then I sit and I listen to everyone else, and I think about all that's happened in the past few months in terms of this budget. But I just wanted to say that that Longfellow is a great school, and I hear from a lot of other parents that other schools in Portland are also great schools. My husband and I also own a small business, and we have employees and colleagues that are a little bit younger than us, and they're getting married, and they've just moved here from Boston, from Massachusetts, from other places in the country, and they love it here. They love the music, they love the breweries, they love just the whole vibe here. They love working here. And so they kind of are looking to my husband and I, so how is it, being a parent here? How are the schools? And we rave and rave and rave. So I thank you for supporting the budget, because not only as a parent, but because I believe in the economy of Portland and that education is critical to it. It's sort of a long game, right? But I believe that if we keep the focus on educating our kids here, that it'll pay off. That it'll pay off for the city big time. It's changing a lot, and I'm hoping that the students in K through 12 currently will help it to change even more for the better and keep the city growing where it should go. Thank you.
Anyone else? Please do form a line if you're interested in speaking.
Stephen Sharfus, Cumberland Avenue. I've spoken to the Finance Committee about the budget. I guess I spoke quickly to the whole board at one point. The budget numbers are not sustainable, and if you were to approve this budget, we're going to be taking ourselves down a path that this city can't continue to sustain, and I'm really concerned that that's where we're going. And but I want to point out some things that I've talked to the Finance Committee about. One is that enrollment is declining. It may seem like it's stabilized, but it really is declining. It keeps going down by 20, 30, 40 a year, and they keep trying to build it up. One of the reasons that pre-K, they want to do pre-K, is because it builds up your numbers. You add universal pre-K, that's a 400 kid bump, and it makes you look, oh wow, you look good for a year or two, and then you're going to see a decline. So, but it's just an artificial inflation of your numbers at a specific cost that is far more than what the state refunds you. So it's a no-win situation there. The areas where the enrollment that has supported our enrollment bump in the last several years are places like refugees and immigrant communities. Those communities are not coming to Portland like they were in the past. Specifically, refugee communities are not being brought to Portland. There was a recent article that described how significantly the numbers have dropped in that community. Consolidation of elementary schools is possible in this budget year. when the decision was made to close Baxter, it was closed in a budget year that it was made, the decision was made. It was simple. We need to close Baxter. They closed Baxter. They closed the building. They moved the students and teachers elsewhere. It's possible to do. Sports programs. I fully believe we could reduce some of our costs by eliminating and merging between the two high schools some of our sports programs. We really don't need 2 athletic directors, and we don't need 2 athletic trainers. Significant savings could be made in that area. I suspect most people don't even know that the school department has 2 athletic directors and 2 athletic trainers. It's one of those things that is buried somewhere in the budget, and unless you see the right document that tells you the right information, you find out that there actually are those positions. The Bayside Learning Community has a $1.3 million budget. I think we need to figure out a better way to do that. It's a very expensive program to run, and we need to figure out a way to do it that doesn't cost us $18,000 to $30,000 per student. Remember, every student that's in the Bayside Learning Program is also counted in their homeschool, so their homeschool gets credit dollar-wise for them. You know, when you look at the enrollment, you say, oh, there's X number of kids in a X school, but those kids may be over the Bayside Learning
Mr. Scharf,
Center.
your time is up.
Can I have another minute, please?
Okay, go ahead.
The central office was a very poor decision to buy that building. It's costing us probably a lot of money we could be spending on actual education. There's room in our high schools that we could move our central office staff to. We don't need a separate building. It was a poor decision. It cost us over $3 million after all the renovations, and the building's only worth, according to a broker, only worth $2 million. That should never have been allowed to be made. There is a silent majority out there who is afraid to come to these meetings because everybody who shows up at these meetings, except for me, are telling you to spend all the money you can spend. But those people will show up at the polls. And if you don't present a budget that is reasonable, they will vote against it, and they will show up in the polls and vote it down. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Sue Olafson, President of the Portland Education Association, and I represent almost 900 teachers and ed techs in the Portland Public Schools. So thank you so much for supporting the superintendent's original budget, and as much of that as you could, and for putting student education and student safety first. The expenditures in the budget were expected and planned for as part of the district's Portland Promise initiative and negotiated contracts. Changes in the state funding formula have created a revenue problem for Portland, and it's discouraging to learn that state funding to Portland is likely to continue to decline in the coming years. When I look at the progress that we've made in student achievement and in plans to upgrade our school buildings, and then I consider the possibility of going backwards, I am very thankful and glad for the courage that the School Finance Committee showed this week in adding things back into the budget. And as I've said before, it's not easy to stand for public education when the state is cutting your revenue and the city council is calling for minimal tax increases. The Portland Education Association represents its teachers and ed techs by advocating for learning environments where teachers can effectively teach and students can achieve at high levels. The district's Portland Promise goals of achievement, equity, whole student, and people is aligned with that mission. The district has begun to create the capacity necessary to achieve those goals through new investments in social and emotional learning, with the hiring of a director to do coordinated professional development, the addition of coordinators for Make It Happen, as you've heard from some students in the past, and expanded learning opportunities, and the addition of social workers. These positions are critical to increasing student achievement and addressing the whole child by providing opportunities for students to develop the skills, habits, and mindsets that they need to engage in our diverse and ever-changing world. Maintaining low student-teacher ratios through small class sizes provides the opportunity for equity. These, along with maintaining our school resource officers and crossing guards, contribute to safe learning environments. The PEA also supports the proposed retirement incentive to help lower expenses. One reason that teachers who are ready to retire don't retire is the cost of paying for health insurance on a reduced retirement income before they are eligible for Medicare at the age of 65. Retired teachers must pay 55% of their health insurance cost, and that is deducted directly from their Maine PERS retirement checks. The district last offered a retirement incentive to teachers in 2012 to help with the cost of retired health insurance, and teachers were very appreciative. I've communicated to teachers the possibility that a retirement incentive may be offered this spring, and they have had time to gather information from Maine PERS and to consider that option. I encourage you to work with the city to create a multi-year plan to address school funding so that we can maintain a school system that is recognized for achievement and equity. If school consolidation is still being contemplated, please allow time for that to be done in a deliberate and informed manner with educators and Portland residents. Your teachers and ed techs do stand with you, and we are ready to help those conversations happen and to generate solutions. Thank you.
Folks, my name is Greg Palmer. I'm the principal at Deering High School, and I'm a resident of Portland. I live at 38 Sandy Terrace in Portland. When I listen to budget conversations, and I've listened to a lot of them over the years, I always feel a little bit like I'm stuck in a time machine with someone on one side of time trying to speak to another person on the other side of time and trying to make sense to each other. And it just doesn't make sense. When people talk about budget cuts, they think about cutting the system that they went to school in, I think. So if someone graduated in whatever year, pick a year, 1975, 1982, whatever the year is, they think about cutting that school system. And until recently, students went to school in an industrialized model. The point was that not everybody was expected to achieve at high levels. And so when you think about that model, it's easier to gain efficiency. Schedules were built that way. Everybody went to class for 45 minutes, and you repeated that 8 times, and you started the next day and did the same thing. I kind of refer to it as sort of like the fast food schedule of education. And it was hard to get in depth into topics and to think through things critically. It wasn't what you were there to do. You're there to memorize as much as you could in as short a period of time as you could and move on. And someone was going to be number one in their class, and if you had 200, I'm going to go with 917, so many students were at Deering. There were 917 students in your school. Someone was going to be 917, and that was okay. It was how it was designed to work. And then that changed because the economy changed and the world changed, and so now we're charged with getting everybody there. That's probably how it always should have been, but it wasn't, and now it is. So when a graduate from a high school in 1970 whatever says we can cut X and we can cut Y and we can cut Z, that might be true for that year in that school. It's a different task now, and I think that has to be acknowledged. It doesn't mean that this isn't a difficult conversation, but I think it just has to be acknowledged. The other thing I'd like to say is just a little bit about budgeting at Deering. We try to be careful about that. There is, in the existing funding model, we have started all our cluster coordinators, science, English, math, social studies, all those folks get together now, and we pool our money from all those clusters and make decisions about how to best spend that money, the supply money. Because we're not going to purchase microscopes and this and that and the other thing. We're not going to get it all, so we decide together what's the best thing to get. And so I just want to be clear about how we do that.
Mr. Palmer, your time is up.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate it. It's a difficult conversation. Thanks.
Madam Chair, thank you. My name is Ethan Strimling. I'm the mayor of the City of Portland. I'm here in that capacity this evening, also obviously a resident of the City of Portland. I merely want to come forward and say thank you to the Finance Committee, especially your chair, for doing remarkable work. I know this has been a hard process to go through. I know there's been an evolution of committee members in trying to do what's best for the kids of this city, and I think that's what you've done, that's what you've brought forward, and I think your chair deserves a lot of credit for that. A few points that I will mention quickly. One is the piece that I was perhaps the most proud of, besides the fact that you were not cutting school days or increasing school size, is that you kept the ball moving forward. You accepted what the superintendent understands must happen in order for us to have the best school district in the state, which is your goal, which is my goal, which is the goal of parents and teachers and certainly our children. In order for us to achieve that, we have to continue to move forward, and it is just short-sighted to think that you can cut and not make advancements and still have that occur. The second thing I'd like to mention is when you bring this to the Finance Committee, I'm on that Finance Committee, there may be some pushback. I don't know. I haven't spoken to my colleagues. I have not been trying to lobby them or talk to them. I'm waiting for the process to play itself out. I hope that in those conversations we are as open as you have been to hearing the community and the importance of making sure that we put our kids first. And when the conversation comes up about the burden, the tax burden, which is a conversation we have to have, we should remind ourselves that the council last year put into place a property tax relief program to take care of exactly the people we are most worried about, our fixed income seniors. The people who, in fact, a property tax increase could make it harder for them to stay. Our council said we want to take care of them. And they are going to receive next year up to $900 from us, well beyond what this increase could be. Now, I would say an answer, if we are feeling like this may be too much for others, is to expand that property tax relief program. That's the right answer. Let's try to get the relief to the people who need it most, because I believe the people broadly in this city will support the budget that you're bringing forward. I disagree with an earlier speaker who said if you send this budget out to the people, I think they will vote for it. But if they don't, then we can come back. That is their choice. That is what has been put in place in our system. Let's use that system. And last, as a simple little side note, somebody earlier said that those of us who are fighting for universal pre-K are doing so because we want to increase our numbers and look better. I can assure you, as somebody who is fighting for universal pre-K, I could care less about whether our schools look better. As do you. I want every 4-year-old in this city to be able to start school as a kindergartner at the same level as every other one. That's our focus in fighting for universal pre-K, and I know it's your focus in putting this budget forward today. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you. Anyone else? There's still a lot of people out there.
I have a question. Sorry. We missed the public hearing about the, excuse me, the name changing of Hall School. And I was wondering if you guys would allow me to make a few statements right now.
It was actually a workshop on the name change. We didn't have a public hearing on that topic.
If you guys would allow me to make a few statements, that would be generous.
If there's a motion among board members to allow it. Marnie, seconded by Sarah. All those in favor? Okay, you may go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Well, first, my name is David Tete. I live in 73 Munjoy South in Portland. I'm here with my mom and my stepfather and 2 of my members of art collective called Keisha Wazo and Adam Burke, who brought this opportunity to us. And Keisha Wazo is an art collective, but I want to talk to the board as a young student in high school who was suffering from the fear of becoming anything, the fear of just being inadequate, the fear of ending up incarcerated, the fear of ending up not getting playing time on a basketball team. And Keisha Wazo saved my life. It means tomorrow's ideas tomorrow's ideas, tomorrow's future, tomorrow's leaders, tomorrow's presidents, you know. And our art collective, the mission is to empower youth through art and to finding yourself and through really, really harnessing your talents and bringing that forth to the world. I would like to ask the board to think about when you were a young student and you had no way to break out. And if your school was named Tomorrow's Ideas every time you showed up, it would give you hope. You know, I respect the names that are being offered. I've heard a lot about Amanda Rowe, and she's done a lot of tremendous work. And I feel like she would love Keshawazo. We'd reach out to her and try to collaborate with her, because that's what Keshawazo does. We collaborate with the community. We try to be in spaces that our youth is not. I don't see many young people in this room, and I want more young people to be in this room. I want more young people to feel like it's acceptable to be here. And in order to do so, there needs to be a school called Keshawazo, Tomorrow's Ideas, so kids can believe in themselves, and all the kids that can identify with that. Hall School is in a neighborhood next to Sagamore, where it is low-income housing, and most of the kids that are coming there are kids like me. I immigrated from the Congo when I was 2 years old. I went to Cathedral School and then St. Bridget's and Chevres. I was lucky that I got to go to private school, but even in private school, I felt boxed in. You know, so these kids coming from Sagamore, coming from Burundi, the Congo, they have something to look forward to. They have tomorrow's ideas to believe in. Whether it's the school or whether it's a job, kids these days, when you look on TV, it's not really hopeful. There's danger in our schools, there's danger inside our schools, but on top of the school, there should be hope. There's hope in tomorrow's ideas, and I ask that you guys consider that as a name. And if you guys don't, I would ask that we can collaborate and find ways to help kids in the school system, whether it be through arts and education and helping us put together a curriculum or workshop so we can be in the schools and help tomorrow's future. Thank you guys for giving this platform to talk and listening to my story and my words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just for your information, we are scheduled to vote on that at our next meeting, which is Tuesday, April 24th.
Okay.
And there is public comment at that time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is there any other public comment on the FY19 budget? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we'll move on to our business meeting. All right. So at this time, I'll call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018, and the Portland Board of Public Education is meeting at City Hall and Council Chambers. May I please ask the superintendent to call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Atkinson?
Here.
Ms. Seeliger?
Here. 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 Here.
Ms. Moriarty?
Here.
Senor Rodriguez?
Presente. Here.
Ms. Farah? Ms. Yuri? Ms. Power-Radnowski? And Chair Chavarro?
Here, and Ms. Clater did let us know that she is not feeling well this evening and won't be joining us. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So in the interest of moving along with a heavy agenda item, I did not prepare anything for the chair's report, except I did want to give a happy send-off to our 3 board members who are going to be attending the NSBA conference. They'll be leaving later this week. And that's Ms. Seeliger, Ms. Thompson, and Mr. Rodriguez. They'll be headed to San Antonio until the 10th, the next Tuesday. So we'll see you back here for our next meeting. But we hope that you enjoy your trip and learn a lot while you're there, and we'll be sure to make time to get a full report out from you when you come back. So thank you for that. We do not have a report of the students tonight. Moving into report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our condolences go out to the family and friends of Mardochi Nagandu. Mardochi passed away last week. He was a 2017 graduate of Deering High School. I am incredibly grateful for the outpouring of support for Mardochi's family from so many in the community and especially at Deering. A memorial fund to help with the expenses has been set up in Mardochi's name. On Saturday, we hosted about 25 participants, including Board Member Rodriguez, for the Boys to Men session on raising healthy boys. Next Sunday, April 8th, Parent University, along with the Portland Children's Museum, will host an event entitled Let's Talk About Walls. Entrance to the museum is free as part of the Parent University event, and we hope you will be able to join us for another outstanding Parent University activity. Last week, we hosted Senator Angus King at PATHS on Wednesday. Senator King came to PATHS because he recognizes that career and technical education plays a critical role in closing the employment and skills gap. We had a great discussion about the work happening at PATHS with staff, students, and with community business partners. As you heard today, there's been a tremendous amount of engagement in the work of the Finance Committee. I'm incredibly grateful to the many Portlanders who have engaged thoughtfully in the ongoing budget discussions. This was capped by the approval of a budget by the Finance Committee last Friday, and my intent coming into this budget season was to raise the level of awareness about the critical decisions that are ahead of us in Portland. I believe we've accomplished this and that our dialogue is richer as the result of the engagement of parents, educators, elected officials, and taxpayers. I look forward to continuing this very important conversation over the coming weeks, beginning with this Thursday's joint meeting with the city's Finance Committee and subsequent adoption of a budget by the board and future consideration by the City Council. Over 25 community partners and staff participated in Portland High School's mock interviews last week. Every freshman student at Portland High School prepared for and participated in an interview experience and received detailed feedback from their teacher and interviewers. This is my second year participating in the event, which is organized by Portland High School's Expanded Learning Opportunities Coordinator, Eric Moynihan. Next week, Portland High School sophomores will fan out across the city and participate in job shadowing experiences at nearly 30 Portland businesses and community-based organizations, including the Portland Public Schools Central Office. We all know that making learning relevant and personal is key. These are examples of the tremendous work happening in our high schools to make that a reality. In somewhat related news, last week, 3 bills were introduced in the Maine legislature relating to the proficiency-based diploma. One bill postpones implementation, one abolishes the requirement, and one, sponsored by the DOE, called the governor's proposal, changed it significantly. I know it sounds a little bit like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. For that reason, as I've said previously, our move towards standards-based teaching and assessments must continue regardless of the state's policy direction. We've made significant strides this year by focusing on helping teachers to understand and experiment with the practices that exemplify proficiency. Our proposed Summer Institute is a key next step in that process. The board's Policy and Public Engagement Committee will be hosting a session on the district's proficiency work on Saturday, April 28th, and time and location will be forthcoming. Our teachers work hard to stretch the resources that they have and to be creative about how to support the work that happens in their classrooms. Among the many things they do that many non-educators may not know about, and you heard briefly about this from Mr. Hopkinson earlier, what you may not know is that they create projects for funding through Donors Choose. Last week, as you heard, Ripple, a California-based Bitcoin company, gave $29 million to Donors Choose to fund every open project across the country. For Portland Public Schools, this meant that we had 43 projects funded, benefiting 25 teachers for a total of $31,913. So that was awesome. If you're interested in donating to new projects that will be up there soon enough, because Ripple comes around every once in a while, but not every day. Please go to www.donorschoose.com to find projects for your favorite Portland Public School. You will see the creativity of our teachers and get a chance to support them with a tax-deductible donation. And today, to speak more about some of the important philanthropy work happening here in PPS, I've asked Kate Snyder, Executive Director of the Portland Education Foundation, to give you an update on some of the terrific work that's happening in this area. Kate?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Kate Snyder. I am the Executive Director of the Portland Education Foundation. PEF works to support Portland Public Schools' philanthropy strategy by generating community engagement and support for our schools. We know that with intense pressure on funding, revenue diversification is an important strategic driver for Portland Public Schools. Community and philanthropic support is particularly useful in many ways, including these. It provides flexible income to support programs, projects, and activities. It enables Portland Public Schools to enhance student experience, and it builds networks of friends and contributors who support the long-term well-being of our school system in many ways beyond financial contributions. To that end, I'd like to provide a brief update of some recent activities that align with Portland Public Schools' goals to engage the community in the support of our schools. But first, I'd like to thank the members of the PEF Board of Directors who volunteer their time and who recently have undertaken the work to create a 3-year strategic plan. A couple of PEF board members are in the back row here, Sarah Morin and Sarah Fortin. Thank you for being here. And of course, the superintendent is a member of the foundation board, and Grace Valenzuela is a liaison to the foundation.
Sue Olafson, too.
Oh, Sue, are you still here? Hi, Sue. And Sue Olafson is also a member of the board. I'm so grateful for the board of directors that helps me do my work and helps us extend our reach into the community. As you all know, the building of a strategic plan is an important and big undertaking, and while we've been at it at PEF for over 2 years, the adoption of the Portland Public Schools strategic plan, the Portland Promise, allows Portland Education Foundation the opportunity to more closely align our work to district goals and to define our work through the lens of the district's programming and needs. And so, some recent news to report. You may have seen that a press release was issued earlier today. PEF received a $50,000 grant from the Stephen and Tabitha King Foundation in support of pre-K through grade 5 literacy resources. And what this means is that each of the elementary schools in Portland will have the opportunity to purchase books or audio resources that will help students learn and expand their access to culturally relevant, language relevant resources in either classroom libraries, school libraries, or book closets. Just recently, there was the establishment of the Annetta Weatherhead Fund for Reiki School. The superintendent, Grace Valenzuela, and I were lucky enough to be at a staff meeting last week at Reiki School where we had the opportunity to help the staff there unveil this amazing $15,000 fund establishment in honor of one of their educators. A generous Portland family, Catherine and Todd Alexander and their 3 delightful daughters, began this fund to help Reiki School do 2 things. Send kids who serve on the math team to the Maine School for Science and Math Summer Camp, and also to provide an opportunity for discretionary funding for the school's use. The gift was triggered by the Eagle Point Donor Fund at the Maine Community Foundation, and it was matched in 2 ways by Unum, which is an incredibly generous supporter of our school district. I also wanted to share that we've been working to engage CEOs and business leaders in Portland. The superintendent and I, and in some cases other PEF board members who have a connection, and I have been meeting with business leaders in the community in an effort to understand their priorities and to find ways that we can work together. We work every day to cultivate new opportunities for Portland Public Schools through the foundation. Whether it's with business leaders, members of the community who have an interest in supporting public education, or grant opportunities through foundations, we are looking to help the revenue problem. As you all know, PEF does run a couple of grants programs. In the fall, PEF was able to award 90 grants to teachers totaling $74,000. And just yesterday, a grant application went live for the PEF Summer Innovation Grants for Teachers program. And what that does is it funds summer work for teachers. We've dedicated $15,000 to the program this year. It was a pilot last summer, and what we learned was there was an incredible need for teachers to spend dedicated time, either alone or in groups, to advance their practice during those summer months in order to hit the ground running in the fall with something new or innovative for their classrooms and for their schools, and obviously for the students. So if you want to learn more about that, check out the PEF website, and that is live right now. And finally, I just wanted to share with you that PEF will be hosting our second annual Spring for Teachers event. Several of you came last year, and I want to thank you for that, and I want to invite you this year. The event is on May 7th, and it's from 5:30 to 7:30. And this is really our one opportunity to engage the community in a fun evening where we're celebrating teachers, we're hearing from them in terms of how they've used grant funding to help move their work with students forward. We have the opportunity to see some student work and come together as a community in the celebration of public education. So it's a fun party. We're, again, this year raffling off a pair of LL Bean kayaks. We've got great food being contributed by El Rayo. It's a fun atmosphere because we do it at Bunker Brewing's tap room. So it's kind of casual, and it's, you know, it's part of what Portland is. And so I'm going to hand you an invitation this evening just to have with you. Like I said, it's a really fun event. We'd love to have you there, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to give you a bit of an update on the work from PEF. And I also just want to say thank you to you all for your work here night after night. I feel you, and
been there.
And it's a lot, so I appreciate your time and your effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, and that concludes my report.
Report of the Secretary. Consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of March 20th, 2018. Is there a motion? Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate. It's unanimous. And we do not have report of the committees this evening, but I will run down the dates and times of the upcoming meetings.
Can I just read a quick mention of the BFOF?
Sure, and the superintendent's going to report on BFOF.
Just very quickly, because there's also some communications involved with this. On Thursday, the Buildings for Our Future Advisory Building Committee met for the first time. There was a robust discussion about the possible order of projects. Steve Stilfen, our facilities director, is working to present the timeline options for different project orders, because this is a critical next step in the process before we go forward with a request for architects and engineers. The committee will meet again this Wednesday, so tomorrow, and then again on April 11th. And I just wanted to let the public know that we've created a quick link on our front page. So when you go to our front page, there's a section that has quick links, and in there you will get a direct link to access the committee information. So we just want to make it easier. That was a request from the members of the committee that we create an easier way for people to access information about that work.
Thank you. So for our upcoming meetings, we have a joint finance committee meeting this week, April 5th at 6 o'clock at City Hall, room 209. Policy and Legislative Affairs is meeting April 10th at 5:30 p.m. at Portland District offices. Operations, Mr. Rodriguez?
Chair. Just real quick, that the date for operations, it says on the agenda, April 10th, was changed to the 16th. And I know that was communicated via email, but it's not updated here. But it's the 16th at district offices.
Great, thank you for that. Curriculum is still on April 11th at 6 o'clock at the district offices. And Ms. Vendel, did you have a schedule change?
Actually, I just wanted to clarify that the Joint Finance Committee this Thursday starts at 5:30 p.m., not 6.
5:30. Great, thank you. And I think that covers it. Moving into consent items, will the superintendent read the items into consent?
Yes, Madam Chair. Lyman Moore had a wonderful turnout for its silent auction, which was held on March 29th. In order to conduct the silent auction, among the things that they were able to auction off were a gift card from Goodfellas Barbershop in Westbrook, 4 general admission tickets to a Sea Dogs game from the Portland Sea Dogs, a 6-month family pool membership from the Ramada Plaza of Portland, a hand-painted stool from Painting for a Purpose, 2 tickets for the 18-19 season from the Portland Symphony Orchestra, a gift certificate from Portland Community Squash, a gift certificate along with a bag of goodies from Revision Energy of Portland, a round for 4 with carts from Riverside Golf of Portland, and a discount on any service before June 1st from Together Private Chefs. Food Services received 5 gift cards to raffle off during their summer meals program from Bayside Bowl of Portland, and Food Services also received 2 gift cards to raffle off for train rides and museum admission for 2 adults and 2 children from Maine Narrow Gauge Railroad. So thank you very much to all of our contributors.
And Ms. Thompson, did you have a...
I just had a clarifying question on, before we went on, we talked about dates, and don't we vote on the budget on the 12th, but we also have a public hearing on the school naming? Is that correct, Ms. Davis? So if we could get word out on both of those, because I think we kind of went over those when we were talking about dates earlier, that we have the school budget vote, but we also have the public hearing. So when the gentleman came to the microphone earlier, we talked about the 24th, which will be another opportunity, but the 12th being the public hearing, I think we need to get word out about that.
And we can follow up with Mr.
Great, thank you very
for
much.
sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And we have no old business this evening. New business, we have a first read to approve the FY19 budget in the amount of $111,966,948. We have a first read to authorize the board chair and superintendent to sign a contract between Metro and the Portland Public Schools. And we have consideration and action to approve amending the 2017-2018 district calendar, having the last student day be a full day on June 20th, 2018, and the last teacher day be June 22nd, 2018. Is there a motion? Ms. Morioni, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Would the superintendent like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. At the March 20th meeting of the Portland Board of Education, staff shared the status of the end of the school year. There have been 8 unscheduled weather-related school closings, and so the regularly scheduled end of the school year for students, which was originally scheduled for June 11th as a half-day, with the weather closings moved to January 21st, also as a June 21st. It's going to be a long school year, folks. Tiana, get ready. Staff presented to the board the possibility of ending the school year on the last full day of attendance, June 20th, for students at Hall Elementary School. This would allow staff additional time to pack and vacate the building prior to the scheduled demolition, which is scheduled to begin on June 26th. Board discussion at that time asked staff to consider the possibility of making June 20th the last scheduled day for all students rather than just for the students at Hall Elementary. After consultation with school principals and staff, the administration is asking for board consideration of that option. If approved, school would end for all students on June 20th. Teachers would still work their regularly scheduled number of days, and their calendar year would conclude on June 22nd as scheduled.
Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the motion? Seeing none, any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving amending the 2017-2018 district calendar, having the last student day be a full day on June 20th, 2018, and the last teacher day be June 22nd, 2018, please indicate. It's unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative. Consideration and action to authorize the superintendent to submit a Part 2 application to the Maine Department of Education as part of the Greater Sebago Alliance Regional Center. Is there a motion? Ms. Vendel, seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Would the superintendent like to speak to this motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. During the last legislative session, the Maine legislature approved 20A MRSA Chapter 123, establishing regional service centers. These service centers are intended to create efficiencies and economies of scale in the delivery of administrative services. The regional service centers require the establishment of an interlocal agreement between at least 2 governing units, and participating districts are required to participate in at least 2 service areas. Participation allows the district, among other things, to retain a higher level of per-pupil funding for system administration. Portland Public Schools, as I've been reporting on over the fall and last few months, has been engaged in discussions with Westbrook and South Portland around several areas where the districts have common interests and are seeking efficiencies and economies of scale. Among the areas that we've discussed are English language learner intake services, transportation, and alternative educational services for at-risk students, among others. As a result of these conversations, all 3 of the districts applied to the DOE for a planning grant to further pursue their collaboration, and the planning grant was awarded to us in December of 2017. Simultaneously, the Sebago Educational Alliance, an existing 501c3 collaboration which included Westbrook and South Portland, along with several other Cumberland County districts, including Gorham, Westbrook, Scarborough, Cape Elizabeth, Bonnie Eagle, Wyndham, Lake Regions, and Freeport, also secured a grant for regionalization planning. The Maine DOE suggested to us that both entities enter into discussions about consolidating their planning efforts. Over the past 2 months, staff and board members, Ms. Morioni, as we reported at the last meeting, was at a joint staff and board member meeting last month, from the participating districts have met and determined that it would make sense to combine the planning efforts. Operating now as the Greater Sebago Education Alliance, the member districts have discussed programmatic efficiencies and economies of scale and determined that it is in their mutual interest to proceed with a Part 2 application to the Department of Education. I want to be clear that authorization that you are being asked to give us under this action today will allow the district to participate in the Part 2 application. So this allows us to submit the application. However, this action does not commit the district to participation in the regional center. A subsequent action to approve entering into a required interlocal agreement by the board, followed by ratification by referendum, is required prior to the implementation. We don't at this time have firm dates on that. We're thinking that the approval of the interlocal, which is now being crafted and revised, would be sometime in May, and we are looking at the possibility of including it in a June referendum, but alternatively, it would be included in the November referendum. So that all needs to be worked out over the coming weeks so that we can figure out what our actual schedule is, again, predicated on the assumption that we would get approval to proceed with the application and subsequently with the interlocal. So that's it.
Any questions on the motion? Ms. Morioni.
Thank you, Superintendent. It was very informative when I went with you to the meeting with the other districts. My question to you would be, so if it were to go to a referendum in June, would the other districts that would be part of the Part 2 application, would they also have to go referendum in June? Or because in the meeting, they talked a lot about, oh, no, that's going to be really hard for our district to move that quickly, so I'm just wondering, it all has to come together by that time for a referendum in June for all the districts?
So we have two of the districts that are prepared to go to referendum in May. So that is, for this to sort of happen, we need at least 2 districts to form earlier than what we would potentially form. So 2 of the districts are ready to go to referendum in May. The rest of the districts are looking at anything from June to all the way through November. Assistant Superintendent Crocker just let me know that ballots are already printed for the June referendum, so we won't be able to be on that, so that would push us to the November referendum date for us to go. We've discussed this with the Department of Education, and they understand that these are considerable steps that local communities are being asked to take, so they understand it, and they would be fine to grant the approval, which would basically at this point hold the funding that we would otherwise lose. It would hold that until such time as it's ratified by the public, and if it doesn't get ratified, then we would lose that amount, which is roughly $90,000 in state funding that is being set aside for us as part of our increased system administration allocation. So it's not a problem that we would go in June. It's not a problem that we would go in November. Most other districts are in that same situation. It's primarily districts that are RSU, so they combine several communities, and they don't have to go to a voter referendum, can do it as part of a community meeting that will be the ones that are forming the partnership to start out.
And then again, that money, the $93,000, that's divided among the districts, or is that every district would get that amount?
So that's a good question. There's 2 $90-some thousand pots. One is the allocation that we would receive as increased system administration, and that varies by district. That's our amount. We're the largest district in that consortium of districts, so other districts have 30,000 or 50,000 or something along those lines. There's also an additional 90,000 that the state is devoting to seed these regional cooperatives, and so that would go to the administrative agent of the cooperative to help with the startup costs, the staffing, things along those lines that would be associated with that. We would not get that additional $93,000. That is shared among the districts that are part of the cooperative.
And then is the $93,000 annually after that, or that would just be a one-time sort of startup?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think that it's an annual, but I don't know.
Okay.
There's legislative actions.
I know we'll have a lot more time to dig deeper into all of it, but I'm just curious because after I left the meeting, I wasn't quite sure. But thank you.
Any other questions on the motion? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the motion?
Stephen Sharp for Cumberland Avenue, although I read some of the backup, I didn't quite understand most of it until just hearing the superintendent's explanation, and have to admit I don't understand more of it now, even hearing it, as to exactly what's being proposed in terms, he referred to 3 different, I think it was 3 different areas of collaboration, but I'm not quite sure what the intent of this is and where there's any real savings. That hasn't really been described. And specific, I mean, yeah, we're going to get some money from the state, but do we really save any money? You know, what's the end game? And where essentially where can the public get more specific information about this? And I'm confused as to why we'd have to take this to referendum. I don't know, I assume that's written into the law authorizing this, but I'm sort of surprised that they put that into that, considering the battles that have gone on as to having to have yearly referendums on school budgets, which the Democrats accidentally put into the school law about 10 years ago when they rewrote the school consolidation law. So, thanks.
I would be happy to explain a little further on that issue, and because I did not include that. As part of the interlocal agreement, which you will have an opportunity to review, I think in your packet you have a draft of the interlocal agreement. You'll see some of the reasons why the referendum is required. It is specifically because it is a long-term commitment that is very difficult to dissolve after we enter into it. So it is a considerable commitment that that the board and the public need to take into consideration. In terms of the specific activities that we are committed to doing as part of this partnership, the two additional activities on top of the ones that I mentioned, which were the ELL intake efficiencies and the alternative schooling and transportation, the additional activities that all of the districts are committed to is shared professional development and procurement of food services. So as part of entering into this collaboration, and one of the places where we envision immediate savings is by leveraging the joint buying power of all of these districts to get better pricing on our foodstuffs. And so that's something that our food service director has evaluated in the context of, these conversations leading up to it, and believes that we would actually get better pricing than what she's able to get on her own, even though we're the larger district in that consortium. So that's one area where we would have real specific savings right off the bat. I think the other around professional development comes on, for example, we're providing for a speaker to come in and do training on a particular activity, and we have room for people from other districts, and they would send staff to our training and would pay us a percentage of what our costs were on a per-seat basis as a way of recouping and making sure that we maximized the value of having that speaker. Things like ELL services, that's a little harder to quantify. We've talked about some of that as being efficiencies, but also improved services. So that would be a place where, for example, we have the existing capacity and we would be able to do intake for some of the neighboring districts, and they would either pay us for the time that our staff have, but that's unlikely because they're booked all the way through. So it would be adding time on our end. So where we have people that might be 3 days a week, they might go to 5 days a week, and those costs would be assumed by the neighboring districts who would get the value. And so it would be the ability to take staff who know what they're doing in those areas and be able to use their expertise to provide the same level of service that they provide us in Westbrook or South Portland districts that have increasingly significant ELL populations, and where they don't have the same level of intense support that we have for intake through many years of great work that's happening in our multilingual, multicultural center.
Ms. Davis.
I don't know if this was discussed while I was out of the chambers, but the assessment fee, do we have a sense of how that's going to work? I mean, there could be savings, but there's a cost to this. There's a member assessment. How that will be calculated, when it would be necessary. Is it something that impacts our current budget, or is it in the next fiscal year, but just, there is a cost, there's a member assessment.
There's a member assessment of $1,000, and it's uniform for every district, so even though we're the larger one, we would pay $1,000, and Lake Regions would pay $1,000. So it's across the board, and again, the potential loss is 90-some thousand for us, so, you know, that's where that offset would occur just by virtue of doing that. But again, we also think that there's potentially other savings down the road with things like food service and so on.
Thank you, because it didn't mention an amount in the, that I saw. So.
That's still being crafted. It'll be a part of the interlocal, but that was our last conversation, that it would be $1,000 per district.
Ms. Thompson.
I just have a question. When you talked about consolidation and bulk buying and things of that nature, are you talking food service? Okay. So I guess one thing that I'd like to have the board look into too is because we've worked really hard for local foods, to buy local foods for our schools and to support local vendors. So it would seem to me that that would be moving away from that movement that we've worked really hard to build if we're going to go to potentially frozen food. So I just want to make sure that, you know, it's outlined clearly as to what we're being asked. And if that is part of it, then I think we need to have a deeper discussion on what we value as a district.
And we're not, I mean, I never said frozen food, and that is not.
No, I'm just hypothetically saying frozen food.
It would be procuring from the same source, Cisco, that we currently procure from, just with better pricing because they have, you know, because they would be procuring for the larger cooperative. You know, we do some local sourcing, seasonal local sourcing, and I would be happy to have Jane come and do a presentation for the board on what we currently do, because I want to make sure that that is consistent with what you think is happening, you know, because this is not something that changed yesterday or overnight. It's something that has been in place for a significant period of time, so we can do that at a later date. But we don't have any plans of compromising the quality of the food that we procure as a result of this.
Okay, so I guess I know that we weren't doing as much, but Ron Adams, when he was our Director of Food Service, really worked with Pineland Farms and local growers, et cetera. So if we're moving away from that, I think the board really needs to discuss that because again, we made a conscious effort to support local for the local economy, and if we're not buying local to the level that we thought we were, then I think as a board, outside of a presentation, need to make a decision too about how we're spending that, because again, you know, we had a conversation, and I know that the board is not made up of the same people, but we gave, you know, at that time, the food service director full force to support local vendors. So again, that was unbeknownst to me. So if we can have a conversation around that at some point, I know we'll get through the budget and it's not going to be tomorrow, so.
Yep.
But
Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to remind the board and Sarah, the Operations Committee, as a result of our meeting on January, we did ask for the department heads to present like level sets to the committee, and food services was one of them. So I know that that's something that, at least at the committee level, we're going to be getting pretty soon. And I want to also add that part of the presentation and what I've asked to have included is the work of the Portland Food Council work, which is dealing with the food insecurities and some of the other issues that are associated with our food services department. So we do have, I expect, I really don't know when that'll happen, but I expect in the next few operations committee meetings, we'll have at least at that level that presentation. And then if we find, like we've done in the past, if we find that it's something that the whole board needs to hear, maybe we'll suggest that at that time.
Any other board discussion? Ms. Morioni.
Okay, so on professional development for our teachers, also I remember when we worked really hard with the teachers union and making sure that it was professional development that was specific to the needs of our teachers in Portland. Not to say that that same professional development isn't needed for all teachers across Maine, but I'm just saying, has this been discussed at all with our teachers union and, or, you know, just to make sure that I just don't want a cookie cutter approach because we're not like, all of our surrounding districts. But if this is signed off on, we can do some of our own professional development as needed and then some in conjunction, or we can tailor it as needed. It's not like we're all just agreeing to the same something.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Any other board discussion? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of appointing,
Nope. Authorizing.
of authorizing the superintendent to submit a Part 2 application to the Maine Department of Education as part of the Greater Sebago Alliance Regional Center, please indicate. It is unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative.
Thank you.
Consideration and action to approve using board contingency funds to pay for 2 staff to attend the ALICE Active Shooter Certification Training at a total cost of $1,190. Is there a motion? Mr. Rodriguez, seconded by Mr. Balfons. Would the superintendent like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, briefly. ALICE stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. It's a set of proactive strategies supported by more than 700 law enforcement agencies around the country. The goal of the ALICE program is to provide individuals with survival-enhancing options for those critical moments in the gap between when a violent situation begins and when law enforcement arrives on the scene. Certification requires a 2-day train the trainer class on response management, and the price is $595 per person. Completing the ALICE training instructor certification course provides individuals with certification in ALICE and allows them the opportunity to bring the strategies back to their places of work. We're requesting authorization to send 2 district staff to a local training in July and to fund this from the board's contingency line because we did not have an allocation for this upfront.
Are there any board questions? Ms. Morioni?
Why are we just sending 2?
It's train the trainers, so those 2 people can come back and train. We have somebody who is a school-based staff person, and Mr. Stilfen are the people that are designated as the
And so
trainers.
the intent with those 2 people, then they'll be able to train.
Train the trainers, so they come back and they train other people.
So just walk me forward a little bit. What's the intent with this plan? I mean,
We need to develop that plan in more detail, but they would be able to come back and, take school-based teams and train them on the ALICE protocols.
Okay. I guess it just leaves me with a lot more questions, just in the sense that, is this the protocol we are now going to be agreeing to use? And what's our time frame in terms of, okay, these people are going to go to the July training, and then what's the timing of them getting other people trained in the schools? And then how many within a school is sort of suggested, or, it just leaves me with a lot of questions.
Yeah, and
I like the idea a lot, but
I don't have answers to those questions right now, so, and as you know, we are going to have a board session on that issue in the future.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I'm intrigued by it. I just don't feel like I have quite enough information to vote on it tonight. Sorry. Okay. Thank you.
That's fine.
Mr. Balfons?
You answered my question.
Yes. That's great. Tiana?
Sure. Wait. This is better. Okay. I'm moving over here. I was wondering if we're having people going to this training, echoing Ms. Moriarty, so they would consider the training and then train other people in the district?
That's correct. They become certified trainers.
But then, how would that translate to students? Would that mean we do lockdowns differently, or would that mean, is that going to make us more prepared for an active shooter in the school? God forbid. And how is that going to translate to the teachers? And like, how is that trickling down to the people it's impacting?
That's exactly what it would do. It's a different protocol from what we've used to date, and it would prepare people to use that protocol in the case of active shooter incidents or any violent incident in a school. You know, a fight, a brawl, anything along those lines, not just active shooters. There's lots of things that could potentially trigger a lockdown in a school. So.
So would students be like trained too, like in conjunction?
I mean, no, not trained, but you would, that when you practice lockdown drills going forward, they would be with using that protocol, the Alice protocol, which I'm not familiar with. So I'm not an expert in it. So I just, so that's why we need to send people to become trained experts.
Any other questions? Mr. Atkinson.
Yeah, Mr. Superintendent, you just mentioned that you're not an expert in this. Can I ask, how did this program come to the staff's attention, and why was it selected?
Well, it's again, it's well known. I've heard of it before. It was something that Mr. Barlow had suggested at one of our safety training, safety team meetings. I believe Wayne Fleet wanted to do this, and so they offered us, they said, we're going to do it, and if you want to send people to the training, here's what you got to do to sign up. So they also have, Cape Elizabeth and other districts are also, sending people to the training. I think obviously the moment is one where people are looking for, more training and more intensive tools, and I think that's where this came from.
Okay, thank you. I'm sad that we're here, but thanks.
I am too.
Ms. Morioni.
Why is it called active shooter certification? Do you know, does it have to do with a teacher with a firearm of any kind?
Pardon me?
Why is it called active shooter? Does it involve a firearm, a teacher having a firearm of any kind?
No. Active shooter is how incidents like the one that happened in Parkland, that's what they're referred to. They're called active shooter incidents.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. And then have we talked to Wayne Fleet about their plan, or just kind of to Tim's point too about, I'm just looking for a little bit more information around what our plan is around this.
And again, I'm not prepared to speak about it today, so I wish I could give you more, and if you, but I can't.
All right, sorry pushing on it, but I'm just intrigued. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the motion? Seeing none, any board discussion on the motion? Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair. So I wanted to just kind of add what my takeaway was from this request. So I think I appreciate what I think Ms. Morioni is trying to say, that, and I think what we all probably agree that there are, when it comes to safety in our buildings, there are many different areas that play into that. Just today over at Hall Elementary, we were talking about how the design of the classrooms, which have like a connection through the back of the classroom, helps like communication in an event of a lockdown. The front doors are locked down. So even the design of that building, safety is considered. And so I see this, sending 2 people to get this training as just one additional resource that we can use as we, keep building and navigating through our plan that involves safety. And then knowing that this is coming out of the board contingency fund, and that this is, I would say, a good way to use that money and kind of falls within the parameters that we know that money has been used for. I think I would appreciate these 2 individuals having that certification and then adding that newly attained expertise into what we're using as a district-wide program for safety. So again, as a piece to the puzzle, I'm happy to see this and knowing that staff members are interested in taking the certification.
Ms. Thompson.
was just going to add, as an employee of Maine Medical Center, they also have a training for anybody and everybody that wants to go. It's not a certification, but it's to help us all realize the world around us and to understand, what things and tools we have that we can use. So I think that a lot of employers now are going to that. And I guess I apologize, I was out of the room. The question being is, once these people get certification, are they going to spread that across the district to train others? Is that?
Yes, they're train the trainers, so.
Okay, beautiful.
We don't have, I think Ms. Morioni's questions were all about what's the plan for that, and I
Okay.
don't have that plan. But that is the intent, that they will become people that we use as resources to train the rest of the staff.
Okay, great, thank you.
Ms. Davis.
I think oftentimes professional development, having the plan for how you're going to roll it out afterwards is something that's legitimate for us to ask, but oftentimes you need to go to the training to really get down in the weeds and see if this is something that would fit for us. There can be a number of different approaches which might work well in different situations, and so I think I'm supportive of sending, especially using contingency funds, I think it's the appropriate source of money, to send a couple of folks to really dive down deeply in it and see. And they may come back and say, yep, we need to train everybody, this is great, or maybe not, or maybe we need to do something else that's a little in between. But I think that actually going to the training will probably be the best way to find that out, and help to raise the level of what we're doing in training for staff in our organization. So I support it. And thank you for seeking it out, and for Wayne Fleet to bringing it to us. It's sort of like the Sebago Alliance we were just talking about.
That's right.
They were offering it, looking for some other people, and I think that's great that we're going to send a couple of folks and learn more about it.
Any other discussion? I would just weigh in to say it's my understanding that this is kind of a new best thinking in terms of protocols around training for this unfortunate circumstance, but I think it's good for us to get informed and get our staff up to speed on this, so I'll be supporting it. If there's no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving using board contingency funds to pay for 2 staff to attend the ALICE Active Shooter Certification Training at a total cost of $1,190, please indicate. And I can't, it's unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative. And there are no personnel items this evening, and we're on to board focus on educational issues. We have Metro Transportation. Mr. Superintendent, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, very quickly. As you saw, there is a first reading for the contract renewal between Portland Public Schools and Metro to enable our high school students to continue to use Metro for transportation. PPS and Metro have been partners in this venture since 2016, and the 3-year contract that has enabled that is coming to an end this June. Staff at both agencies have been working to create a successor agreement, which you will be considering at the April 12th meeting. And in preparation for that, Greg Jordan, CEO of Metro, and Fred Barlow, our PPS Director of Transportation, are here to discuss the program to date and highlight any anticipated improvements and changes. Metro has been a great partner to Portland Public Schools. As a result of this partnership, Portland has been able to improve transportation services to our middle and elementary students. And additionally, as part of the partnership, our high school students use Metro for school, but also have access to it for work, play, and getting around town year-round. I always look at the value added for our students of learning how to use public transportation as one of the programmatic offerings that our district provides that is unique in the state of Maine. I love the fact that our students, while still in high school, are learning how to get around town using public transportation. This is a valuable and useful skill to have and is environmentally friendly, and another example of how our programmatic offerings create relevant learning opportunities for our students. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg, and thank you for being here.
Is this on? Am I on? Yeah, okay, good. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. Again, I'm Greg Jordan. I'm the general manager for Metro, and as the superintendent pointed out, we are in the middle of the third year of this program. I remember standing here about 3 years ago when we took the first step to launch this program, and at least from Metro's perspective, and I hope from yours, it's been a tremendous success. And I know the hour is late, and you've had a long agenda, but there are some new faces in the room, and I'd like to go through just a little bit of background on how we got here and where we would like to be going. So I will just start with just some facts about Metro. I'm not going to go into detail about this except to remind everybody that Metro is a public sector quasi-municipal organization. Sometimes there's some confusion that maybe we're a private bus company, actually a governmental organization. Our board of directors is made up of the towns or the city of Portland, the city of Westbrook, and the town of Falmouth. However, we provide bus service across the region, including South Portland and now up to Brunswick, Freeport, and Yarmouth with our Metro Breeze service. I won't go into details that are up there on the slide except to say that transit service in Portland is very robust, and that was what enabled us to really launch this program when we started talking about it a few years ago. And I'll start with this slide up here that shows something that we looked at 3 years ago. And just by way of background too, this initiative arose out of a need for better transportation for students across the district. The principals of all three schools back in 2014 and 15 were concerned about improving transportation and mobility for all students and reached out to us and asked what we could do about it. And we came up with not a brand new concept, certainly something that's been in place across the country at secondary schools in some cases, but most notably at universities. We call it an unlimited transit pass program. And when we first started the conversation, we looked at where everybody was living, where all the students were living in Portland, and basically mapped where they're living in relation to where bus service exists. And what we found out, we were very gratified to find out, was that about 80-85% of all the students were living within 1/4 mile of a transit route. And that map illustrates that concept. And when we were first talking about this really gave us, I think, all the idea that this could really work. And so as we began putting together the program, we modeled it on university programs across the country. Again, we launched it in 2015. The passes are provided to all students, and it also doubles as their student ID as well. And so it also has PPS functionality for the students. It works in the cafeterias and other areas. The core concept behind the program from our perspective is that it's free and unlimited. And so through the arrangement that we have financially, it is free to the student and unlimited access. So they can ride at night and on weekends, during breaks. And so it really incentivizes that ability to use transit and get around Portland. As you know, the district is only responsible for the weekday school day boardings, and we are absorbing the cost of the rest of those boardings, so it ends up being free to the student. Currently, the charge is 75 cents per boarding, which is 50% of our current one-way cash fare, and we'll come back to that in a few minutes. The benefits of the program really are multi-faceted, ranging from the student benefits from their mobility and independence and getting around town, but also life skills development, on through the fact that it frees parents' time up. It frees up household budgets from not having to drive their kids around as much as they used to be. It gives you more flexibility to set bell times according to the latest research and your other goals. It also allows you to use internal resources a bit more efficiently. From a transit perspective, of course, it increases transit ridership, and that's one of our primary goals. And in doing so, and with the funding from this program that we get, we're able to improve service that not only helps the students, but helps the community. And then our long range, I think, strategic thinking is that this leads to greater mobility in Portland, more transit-oriented development as this generation of youngsters grows up knowing transit, is familiar with using it, and is familiar with the concept. And so together, hopefully, we are better at designing communities that are more sustainable, more pedestrian-oriented, and better able to combat climate change going forward. So those are the overall benefits. On performance and ridership, this chart here is showing a couple of things. So the blue section of the bars over these 3 years are what we call chargeable boardings. These are the boardings that we charge to the district and get reimbursed for at 75 cents a boarding. The red portion is the piece that Metro basically absorbs. Those are the boardings that are either occurring above the caps we have in place with you or occur on weekends or during break periods. Back in 2015 and 16, that cap was set at about 213,000 boardings. At that point, we were doing our best to model what we thought the boardings would be. And we hit it fairly close. We came in just over 250,000 boardings that year. And then the year 2 of the program, the cap rose by 15% up to 245. And boardings that year that were chargeable actually were very close to that amount. So we were pretty much on target there. And the red portion there really is those break period boardings that Metro absorbs. In the current year, and this is a projection at this point, but we're almost through the year, so we're pretty confident in where this is going to end up. The cap did raise again, but we're not going to come close to hitting that. We're again sort of in that 245,000 boardings per year. So unless enrollment changes dramatically or some other factor changes, I think we've hit the maturity on the program, and I don't expect us to be going much higher than that in terms of boardings. Looking a more granular level, the boardings per day, about 1,300 to 1,500 on Metro. What that tells us is that there's probably about 600 to 700 students out of the system a day that are using the system. The non-chargeable boardings on weekdays, Saturdays and Sundays, obviously a bit less. We're seeing about 300 to 400 boardings during non-school days, about 200 to 300 on Saturdays, and far less on Sundays. You may recall when we first started talking about this that we were beginning to get in gear to launch a real-time bus arrival technology program. Well, that did launch finally in 2016. It's referred to as a Southern Maine Transit Tracker, and it gives students and all passengers access to real-time bus arrival data by app, by text, and by desktop, and it's been a phenomenal success. You may also be aware that we launched the Metro Breeze service in 2016 as well. That doesn't affect the district directly, but it's another enhancement to the transit network that we're pretty excited about. And we expanded it to Brunswick just this past August, and it's doing very, very well. There's been a number of bus stop improvements that have happened over the past couple of years, and more are coming. In particular, we've installed shelters at both Casco Bay High School, both sides of the street, and also Deering High School, also both sides of the street. Also, multiple shelters installed in downtown Portland that are servicing the students down in Portland High. These shelters obviously offer shelter, seating. They're either solar or grid powered, and we do our best to make sure that they are that there's no obstructions, that it's visible inside the shelter, so it's tempered glass, no obstructions around it, so we have good visibility for security purposes. We have more shelters coming in this year, 10 to 15 across the entire system. I also wanted to point out, although I'm sure you've all seen it, we also did a pedestrian improvement at Casco Bay Lines back in late 2016. We installed beacons to make sure that crossing was safe, and also a crosswalk as well. We also, in just this year, are advancing a new initiative to clear snow from as many bus stops as we possibly can in our system. This has been a major demand request for years in our system, and we couldn't quite find a cost-effective way to do it, but we finally found a way. And we started that process just this past winter with the last 2 storms. And that photograph really is what happens. We hire people, we go out there, and we do our best to shovel 80–90% of the stops that are out there, in addition to all the shelters, because if climbing over a snowbank is no fun for anybody, and this really helps people get to the bus and get on safely. So that will continue. You may have read in the media recently about our expansion plans that involves a new service that connects Gorham, Westbrook, and Portland. That's called the Husky Line, at least for now. That's launching in August of this year. It also connects the 2 USM campuses. That service will, of course, parallel the Route 4 in Portland, the Brighton Avenue corridor, so that's an improvement to our residents and students in that area. The other big part of the improvement is a new route connecting Westbrook, actually northwest Portland in the Riverton area, down through downtown Westbrook and over to the Maine Mall. Long-standing request by the city of Westbrook and a major gap in our system, so making that connection is a great improvement for the network. That will also be happening in August. Along with those 2 improvements, you may have also read that we are advancing the same kind of program we have with you to USM. So starting in August, all 6,000 USM students, staff, and faculty are going to have the same basic pass as the high school students will. So we're very excited about that. We are beginning to introduce new equipment starting this summer as well. Some of our equipment is getting a little old, and some of them are overdue for replacement. We have 11 new buses coming in the next few months that are this exact model. They won't look like that exactly in terms of the paint scheme, or at all actually. That's a stock image. We have a new brand coming out this summer as well, a new paint scheme, but I can't share that with you yet because it's still under wraps. But it's pretty cool. But this is the model that we are bringing in, 11 new buses this summer, followed by 6 and 7 the following 2 years. Again, expansion fleet and also replacement fleet. So Some of the older buses that you see out there today are going to be going away, thankfully, and these are coming in. They're larger than our current fleet. They're 40-footers, and they will accommodate many more passengers, which are necessary on the school runs especially. A little bit more elegant interior and more spacious, and we're hoping people really enjoy that. The buses will also be equipped, actually our entire fleet is going to be equipped with Wi-Fi starting this summer. And the new buses coming in will have in-seat USB ports, and so people can plug in and recharge and do their thing. So we're excited about that. We are also in the process of putting together our strategy to upgrade fare collection. Right now we have what I would call a dumb fare collection system, and that it only accepts cash and paper tickets and passes. And we are working to move toward an electronic system to accept smart cards, and we hope, mobile fare payment options as well. One of the things that we are looking forward to with this new technology is to be able to better level the playing field. Right now, the equity in our fare system is not great in that if you can afford to pay $45 for a monthly pass, you benefit from a pretty decent discount if you ride a lot. But if you pay $1.50 every day because you can't afford to drop $45 on a pass, you're paying $1.50 a day and getting no discount. With these technologies that are coming out now, we can move to a system that rewards you for boardings and trips versus dropping down more money. And that will really level the playing field in our system. And it's also a feature that could be extended to pass programs as well. On the agreement, which the superintendent alluded to, of course, that's the main reason why we're talking here tonight. We are hoping to approve another 3-year agreement with you. We have proposed and to have the base fare set to, instead of a flat amount, 75 cents or some other amount, to be 50% of our prevailing one-way cash fare. And so if the cash fare is $1.50, then obviously 50% of that is 75 cents. But we are beginning to look at having to raise our fares in the future, and most likely in connection with electronic fare collection coming on in 2019. It has been 7 to 8 years since the last fare increase in our system, and we are overdue for one. And so we also want equity across our different pass programs. We don't want one institution being charged one thing and another being charged another. And so going to an indexed strategy will sort of help solve that. The exposure for you, however, though, is that when fares do raise, the 50% is then keying off of a larger number. We all are also putting in the agreement that at least in 2018 and 19, you'd be held harmless from any fare increase. It would just be when 2019 hits or thereafter. We're including another set of boardings caps, so you have a cap on the boardings that can be charged over the next 3 years. We didn't have summer session boardings in the prior agreement, but we did figure out ways to accommodate those needs during the summers through side agreements. But we had proposed, and I think we're in agreement, that we want to have those be a part of the base agreement going forward. Again, that would only apply to when summer session is when summer session is in session, which is not a very long period of time during the summer. So we would absorb those boardings when school is not in session. As I mentioned, we have pricing and technology changes planned for mid-2019. Again, the fare increase, the amount of that, the nature of it is not known yet. Again, it's going to be very much tied to what collection strategy we go with, what technology we go with. So it's very hard to determine what the exposure is going to be on that. The numbers in your memo that I saw, I think, represent very, very extreme worst-case scenarios. And certainly as we go through this process with our board, with the public, in fact, in 18 and 19, you will be right there with us having a conversation about what a fare increase means for PPS. Lastly, there's some other collaborations I wanted to point to. I won't go through these in detail, except to say that we are continuing to work with the superintendent and your transportation director on more ways that we can collaborate that can hopefully save you some money along the way. And then finally, we want to move to reactivate the task force that we established a couple of years ago and get that going again. We have, I think, some important imperatives to have that task force help us on. We want to develop a new communications plan going into next year. Some of the communications that we have done have been comprehensive but kind of dense. We want your help and the students' help to calibrate those a bit more for student eyes and ears. We want to we're working with actually some student interns already on ways to engage students a bit more effectively. And we are also evaluating improved mechanisms for incident reporting. And we will do more survey research this fall. We did some survey research back in the fall of 2016, and we want to do another round of it in 18, and when that's completed, we'll be happy to come back and share those results with you. That is my quick overview, and I thank you for the time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or hear any comments you have. Who's in charge?
Thank you so much, Greg. I think this is really exciting. I mean, I just think that it's been a great partnership, and I really appreciate all your hard work and working with Portland Public Schools along the way. And my question has to do with the incidents you mentioned and how are they being handled? And I think at one point there's video monitoring on the buses or at the bus stop. Can you talk just a little bit about incidents and that piece of it?
Absolutely. So I would say over the past 2.5 years, there have been very few, I could probably count them on one hand, incidents that we've had. But when they do happen, we of course investigate if we have to involve, well, we certainly work with PPS staff as needed, but we involve Portland Police Department as needed. We do have video and audio systems on the buses, and so those are great tools in investigating what actually happened and learning from what happened and taking action, and if necessary, in some cases, trespassing people off the service if we have to.
No, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that did.
Ms. Yuri.
Back and forth is a little weird. My question is more about, you mentioned on areas for improvement, incident reporting, and what counts as an incident, I guess, because I know that you mentioned that you haven't heard of a lot of incidents, but I think one of the issues for me personally is that not a lot of students know how to report incidents, what they should do, because I know that they happen a lot. And for me, I get sexually harassed on the bus probably twice, 3 times a month or more.
Okay.
And I know that this is a shared experience for a lot of kids, and it's not necessarily sexual harassment. It could be harassment in other forms, sometimes racially targeted, which is really upsetting to me. And actually one of the reasons why I joined the school board, to make sure that the bus can be a safer method for kids, because I love being on the Metro and that we have this really awesome relationship that is really symbiotic. And but I do want to make sure that kids on the bus can feel safe, and that I get that this is definitely a really amazing skill to learn how to take public transit and learn these important and unfortunate skills, but also like feeling unsafe on the bus isn't fun or tolerable for me, at least as a student. So I was wondering, what are your plans for the future as far as incident reporting and getting that out to students, especially through outreach? Because I know that it happens, but people don't know what to do.
So the one thing I think we can do a better job on, and this goes back to actually, I'm going to go back to the actual pass itself, which we, in advancing the program and talking about, user and safety tips and how to be smart using transit, the back of this pass right here, we even though it may be small, it's in the other materials as well. The most important thing I think we try to tell students is the bus driver is your safe haven. We use that phrase often, and I think part of our communication improvements that we need to make are to make sure students really are aware that if you ever experience a problem of any kind, go to the bus driver. He or she is there to help you, to contact assistance if necessary, to resolve or try to resolve an issue in the moment. That being said, I do think part of what we want to do too is give students an ability to contact us directly and anonymously to let us know if you've experienced something that we should know about that maybe didn't get reported in the moment. And so that we're working on as well, to giving you some sort of portal that would allow for a safe transmission of information.
Can I also add something to that? And Tiana, that's obviously not okay, for that to happen. And I know that in those instances where, things have been reported and that Greg and his staff have been incredibly responsive, and also, that there are occasions where, they've done retraining for bus drivers, as well as, sort of clarifying their procedures with their staff if they felt that, or there was evidence that they didn't do enough to respond to a situation. So I think that, there clearly is a lot of work that needs to happen on the communications front to make sure that students understand what their procedures are for notifying. And it's, obviously it's very difficult to do that in the moment when you're actually being harassed. And so knowing that there are cameras that people can go back and, after the fact report, and then that they can sort of investigate and follow up, and both Metro and the police department take those situations very seriously. Yep.
Ms. Thompson.
I just want to extend gratitude for originally bringing this to us and the relationship that we've developed over the years. I know at the beginning we kind of didn't know what we were doing, but you always knew what you were doing. So thank you so much for all of the hard work that you've put in and the expansion, not only with us, but for the city of Portland and beyond. We're lucky to have you over there. So thanks.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Jay. So same here. I just wanted to thank you for all the work, and this is one of those services that we offer here in Portland that is just an immense value, and it's really hard to quantify how valuable this is for our young students and for the city. Just one quick question, and I don't think I saw it on the slide, of the new buses that you have on your fleet, the replacement and the expansion fleet, what fuel source are those buses?
They are going to be a combination of compressed natural gas and diesel powered. Right now, we maintain a mixed fleet. We used to have a strategy of going all CNG, but Metro is actually the only CNG fuel station in the state of Maine. And so we can't have a full CNG fleet and allow ourselves to be disrupted that way. So we maintain a mixed fleet. You may have also heard in the media in the past week or so that we are exploring very seriously how we might transition to zero emission by 2040, and how electric buses can help us accomplish that.
Anyone else? Mr. Atkinson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I am a cyclist, as my board colleagues know. Primarily, that's how I get around. So Metro helps me a lot. And I've been on the bus many times as Deering High lets out, and just jammed in there with all the students. And it's a fun experience. So thank you for the partnership, and look forward to continuing it.
Thank you. And also, the new buses will have 3 position bike racks versus 2.
Right, yeah, that'll be helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would just like to also thank Fred Barlow, our transportation director. Fred's done a terrific job of communicating on a regular basis with Greg and with his counterparts at Metro, and also working to negotiate this agreement. So thank you, Fred, for your work on that.
I'm sorry?
Denise does a nice job of middle school training and stuff also.
Oh, sure. Fred's mentioning the orientation work that we do every year with actually all the students, but mainly with the rising 8th graders. And those orientations will be starting in June when we give them their passes. And so, yeah, Denise Beck of our staff and our other staff who go out and do those orientations, great job. They do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. And where it is before the hour of 10 o'clock, at this time, we would take public comment on any item not on this evening's agenda. Seeing no public comment, I will close public comment and call for a motion for adjournment. Mr. Balfont, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. All those in favor? It's unanimous with the student in the affirmative.